Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Hey, welcome to Business Coaching Secrets. You're here with Karl Bryan, and I got my boy Road Dog. Road Dog, how goes it?
It's going pretty well, thank you very much.
That's what I want to hear, man. That's what I want to hear. We've had a pretty big week, and I hear we got some serious questions coming through, man. So, as per usual, why don't we get stuck straight into it?
Yeah, let's do that. I know that it's kind of fitting here, the first one, and I know that you've been doing a ton of self-study when it comes to, and again, I don't know why, but accounting, like seriously, Bob? Like a lot of people just go out and get a hobby, and Karl goes out and says, "Oh, I'm going to start learning accounting," because that makes sense. So, anyways, on that note. Now, by no means do we have to have a disclaimer here saying this is not legal financial advice or what?
Yeah, I am not an accountant, ladies and gentlemen, but I would actually, wrote it. But so those listening, again, how much, some are going to be new and some are going to know me pretty darn well and followed me for a long time. So financials is something I've always been, just had a bit of a natural flair for. So over the last period of time, I've decided to take it up a notch, and I have been studying accounting at a very high level, and not like accounting debits, credits, and moving stuff around, which most definitely that's there because I need to, I don't want to learn it so that I can go create financial statements. I want to learn it so that I can teach it. So I got to go kind of a couple levels up. So anyway, so I've been studying that. You got no idea. I've had my nose stuck straight in the middle of a book and about 1 million binders and about what feels like 700 audio. So anyway, so yes, my man, that's what.
Well, it's funny because people say they get tired when they start reading financials. I just get tired listening to you talk about it. So there's that. All right. So now speaking of that though, so here's a good one then, right? So give us sort of a Cole's Notes, if you will. Like if I'm reading my client's financials, like is there anything specific that I should be A, looking for, B, avoiding? And then at the same time, if I'm doing all that, like liability, like I just sort of was joking about it, but is there a liability type issue there as well?
Yeah.
So
it's a gray. This is not black and white. This is gray. But really, where there's liability is preparing, right? Looking over somebody's financials and pointing at a few areas. This is not, this isn't something you have to worry about. It depends on how deep you're going to go. But at the end of the day, remember, your job isn't to avoid liability. Your job is to help your clients at the highest level. So, this is something you just look in your own world. This is something you got to, in my opinion, this is something you should get comfortable with. You don't need to be able to, again, prepare the financial documents, but to not be able to look over somebody's financials and be able to point to a few key areas that could make a huge difference, I think that, that would be a mistake. So answer to the question, what do I look for? So in fact, I covered this not long ago. But I think it's totally relevant, and it would be worth saying another time for sure. So you have a client who is doing well. They've got high revenues, and they say to you, where's the money? Like, I'm profitable, but I've got no cash. Like, you can't go to 7-Eleven. You can't go to the grocery store. You can't go to the car dealership and buy a car or the grocery store to buy groceries with profits. You have to use cash. Kind of sounds 101, but I got to tell you guys, when you look at financial statements, you will often see, like, you look at a profit and loss, right, or an income statement, and the bottom, literally call it the bottom line, or profits, or earnings. Right, it's got a bunch of different names which they use just to confuse the hell out of you, right? But the bottom line, this is where you see the profits. But at the end of the day, if they don't have any cash in the bank, it's like, how does that happen? And I'll tell you where it happens. There's 5 areas you need to go immediately. You go to revenues, which that's a 101, that's growth. These are joint ventures. This is, bringing in, bumping up your sales team, making cold calls, using social media, and on it goes. You got to bring revenues pointed like an arrow up. You've got to bring expenses down. It sounds so obvious, but my experience is that businesses just don't do it. So you got to help them find their expenses and bring them down. Accounts receivable, huge. Okay, so important. If your client has an accounts receivable, this is insane. Okay, because they've done all the work and then not collected the money, so you need that to go down. And then you've got accounts payable. This is one that's normally a star beside it. People don't quite understand, but accounts payable, people are in a hurry to pay, but then they're not in a hurry to collect, right? And if you think about like the gap in between those is the death nail for a lot of businesses. If you buy something from Apple, and again, I said this within the last few weeks, but if you bought something from Apple, they don't pay you for 91 days, the most cash flush business in the world. And they don't, there's a reason why they negotiate those terms, because they don't want to pay you before they sell the phone. And then the other one is inventory. Again, this is just, you just don't want to get stuck at inventory. It's again, 101. And if you want an example, you use Tesla versus Ford. You walk into a Ford dealership, and how many cars do you see? How much land? Well, at the end of the year, when they don't sell those cars, and then the next year model come out, what happens? They got to sell all the old stuff at a huge discount, and they need to run it out. When you buy a car, you don't buy 2 cars because you got a good deal, right? You buy one, and then it's another 4 years before you buy again. Not a good thing. So Tesla, if you've ever walked into a Tesla dealership, let me tell you, it's normally downtown, flashy location, and there's 4 cars. Okay, like that's it. They got 4 models, and there's 4 cars. So think of the difference from an inventory perspective. Just totally different business model, point blank. So anyway, so those 5 areas, but more. Okay, so I'm looking at financials. Here's again a mistake that people make, and a mistake accountants make big time. They provide you financial statements mean nothing without a comparable. Okay, so again, like a metaphor for that would be if you stepped on the scale. Okay, let's say I'm 180 pounds. Well, if I was 220 6 months ago, this is good, right? But if I was 160 and that's the right weight for me, and now I'm 180, this is bad. So financials are useless without a comparable. So the absolute minimum that you'd want to be looking at would be 2 balance sheets. So you've got like a balance sheet is like a picture. It's a moment in time, okay, a snapshot. And then you've got an income statement, and then you've got a cash flow statement. Most businesses, you guys even, you might not have ever even seen a cash flow statement, right? So you absolutely need that, because remember, you run out of cash, you go out of business. You don't go out of business because you run out of ideas. You go out of business because you ran out of cash. End of story, right? So you got to make sure that you're understanding that, and the like the comparables between them. So the cash flow statement is critical, and then you'd have a back end and another balance sheet that would be the end period. So once again, a snapshot. So the minimum that I would want to see are 4 financial documents, and one would be a beginning balance sheet. Then there would be 2 what we'll call movies, is the way it was described and taught to me. Okay, so the income statement is a movie because it's a period of time. Okay, so it's like going to be 2 weeks, a month, a quarter, or a year. Cash flow statement, same thing. It's a period of time. And then you'd have another snapshot balance sheet at the end. So in other words, you'd have 2 balance sheets. Let's say that they're 3 months apart, a quarter, and then you'd have 2 financial documents in the middle that would explain what the difference is. Because you compare the balance sheets, they're going to look different. My question is, well, where did the money come from? Where did the profits come from? Or where did they go if it's going in the wrong direction? And then what you're looking at the financial statements for, 2 things. You're looking for relationships, and you're looking for trends. Okay, so picture trends going left to right, and then picture relationships going down. So trends, what I'd want to do, so if I was looking at your financials, again, I want to have comparables. Let's say I looked at, last year's, or 2 years ago, last year, and then year to date. Well, as I look from left to right at the 3 years, I can see the revenues going up or down. Okay, this is a trend. Okay, now that I understand that there's a trend going in the wrong direction to the right direction, my question is, what is going right? What is going wrong? Or frankly, what is staying the same? Why are we stagnant? Why are we not experiencing growth? Right? So you've got that. And then relationships, you're coming down. So picture like those. So you've got, just picture three numbers. You've got revenues, you've got gross profit, and then you've got net profit. Okay. And I don't know if this was meant to be a financial seminar, right, to explain all this stuff. But for those of you not totally familiar, gross profit is basically it is revenues minus cost of goods sold. So it's expenses directly related to selling it. So if I was selling lemonade, cost of goods sold would be the water, the sugar, and the lemons. Okay, so that would be cost of goods sold. My other expenses like rent and whatnot wouldn't come out of that. So I would have my gross profit, and then below that, I would have my net profit. So once again, think of this. You're looking at a financial and you're going down. What are the relationships between gross profit and net profit? And if the relationship is that there's too big of there's not enough of a gap or too big of a gap, you need to then the question is why, right? So like, what do they say? Like, very smart people come up with really good answers. Geniuses come up with really good questions. You follow that? Like, that's a total, can't begin to the power, I believe, that in that statement. Geniuses come up with questions. Smart people come up with answers, right? So the question is, why does the relationship look like this? Like, what is happening? And then if you want the answers, you go to the two movies that I just described a minute ago, which is the income statement and then the cash flow statement, because they'll tell you what's happening, right? So again, another example that I would give you is if you've got two companies, okay, let's just look at straight an income statement, profit and loss. Some of you might know what is that. You've got revenues, and then you've got expenses, and then you've got bottom line. I just picture that's as exciting as it is. Revenues, expenses in the middle, and then bottom line, profits, earnings at the bottom. Again, those three words mean the exact same thing. They're just trying to confuse you, right? So if you've got two companies and one had revenues of 1,000 and then expenses of 995, their profits or earnings are what? 5, right? Okay, cool. Now we know this is not exciting. This is a business where expenses are significantly too high. Got to understand why and get to the bottom of it. But their bottom line is 5, okay? Another business has got revenues of 10, expenses of 5. What are their earnings, their profits? 5. Well, are these businesses similar? And they both have the same bottom line, but they are completely different businesses, like completely. And one you want to be very, very nervous about. And then one you want to go in there, you got 50% margins, potentially be very excited about, because if you could go in and jack up revenues, you're going to have yourself an insanely profitable business. So these are the things that I'm looking for. I'm looking for relationships. I'm looking for trends. I'm looking for comparables. And then there's specific, as I talked at the beginning, like there's 5 areas that you really want to go to. You want to go to revenues, you want to go to expenses, you want to go to accounts receivable, inventory, and accounts payable to find some dough. One other one, with fear of, again, going a little maybe too deep on this one, but it's super important. There's another line item, and it's depreciation, okay? And there was a survey, and I can't remember, I don't want to spit up some made up numbers, but it was something to the effect of like 60% of accountants didn't understand depreciation. Okay, so depreciation, or amortization. If it's intellectual property, it's amortization. And if it's a hard good, it's a car, it's depreciation, right? So depreciation and amortization, fundamentally the same thing, just one's intellectual property and intangible, and then one is a tangible like a car. So depreciation is a non-cash expense, okay? So an expense does what to revenues? It decreases them, right? Well, when your revenues or your profits, it's a non-cash expense which comes off of earnings, and then the less your earnings or your profits, what are you going to pay less of? And the answer is tax, okay? And the number one expense in your life, my life, everybody listening, the number one expense in your life is taxes times 10. But if you have a room full of 100 people, we ask them, 80 hands would go up for housing and mortgage, right? So like understanding how to minimize your tax position in a legal and ethical way, right? This isn't about being shafty. This is about being intelligent. And things like, so something like depreciation, where I was saying like accountants don't, there was like a study and it was something like 60% of accountants really don't understand depreciation properly and the power of it. And at the end of the day, forget the power, but the magic of it is that it allows you to decrease your profits without spending cash. It's a non-cash expense. So you're paying less taxes without paying anything out. This is powerful. And again, this is an area that, you might want to educate yourself on a little bit. More to the point, remember, we're business coaches and our job is to help business owners, right? So as much as I'm talking to you, really what I want to do is be talking through you, where I want your clients to be getting the information that I'm talking about, right? Because these are like, again, example that I've given for years, but it's like the number one expense in your life is taxes. And then think of the local family. Mom goes and starts an MLM and she's selling, lingerie in the kitchen, throwing parties with all her buds and frankly annoying the crap out of them a lot of the time. But she's doing it. Why? To make an extra 10 grand this year. Why? Because they want to go on a holiday to Disneyland or whatever it is, right? Or they just want to keep their head above water, not have she doesn't want the financial stress on hubby of having to work so hard because they bought the house that was a little bit outside of their price range, right? Well, instead of starting the MLM, if they bought a book, right? Like literally as I stand here, like you guys are hearing me, like obviously I understand this stuff at a reasonable level, or hopefully it sounds like that, but I have a book right here. You can hear it. It's Tax-Free Wealth, right? So like that's the book that I'm reading, right? And I understand this stuff. This is, your client would be better, or somebody or a family that for that matter, maybe it's you, studying taxes would be a significantly smarter undertaking than starting the MLM, unless you really understand taxes. But if you really understood taxes, you probably wouldn't need to start the MLM. So anywho, that's what I'd say to that, man. Relationships, comparables, and trends are three words. When you asked earlier about, this undertaking and, how I'm studying accounting, I'm not studying accountant debits and credits. I'm studying that, percentages, because percentages is mastery, right? Like forget absolute numbers. When you start understanding percentages at a really high level, it's a game changer. In fact, let me just qualify that to you. So if you have a business that did, they went from 30 to 39, right? Percent. So they went from 30 to 39 in their business. That looks like an increase of 9, right? But that's a 30% increase, right? Most people wouldn't see that. 30 to 39 in percentages, like it's a 30% increase. So that's mastery. Or a templated example that I've used for years. You have a business that made 100 grand last year and they have 20% margins, which would be about right. Okay, well, you increase their margins from 20 to 30% by reducing their expenses and going through their expenses line by line. You go from 20 to 30, that is a 50% increase, not a 10% increase, right? So that business, you went through their credit card statements, took you a few hours, you just made them $50,000. You didn't make them 10 grand. 20 to 30 was 10, that would be 10 grand. But 20 to 30 is 50, you just made them $50,000 of real tangible dough that they will have at the end of the year. So that's the answer to that, bud. And I hope what I'm explaining here is why I'm so passionate about the subject, because you can make such a dramatic impact on business owners when you understand this stuff. Because believe me, I don't need to meet your coaching client to know that most of what I just said is just they've probably fallen asleep, okay? But they didn't understand most of it. And that's not okay, right? They have to understand this stuff at a reasonable level. And this is why 95% fail, because they, on the weekend, they don't read books about accounting.
Well, it's funny you say that.
That is my answer to that, Rude Dog.
I look at that. You know how long it took me a while when you said that 20 to 30%, and taking that business. that example, it's so good. Like it's crazy. It took me a while to actually wrap my head around that. And just to clear it up for everybody, right? Like 20%, if you're at 20%, at 10%, right? You're going from 20 to 22, right? So you just do the math. It's crazy how that is such a huge impact to somebody's bottom line. It's like it blows my mind. Now, you did mention something about somebody in $100,000 car. So let me ask you that then. Like, if you've got somebody and it's like, man, I'm working hard, I'm starting to make good money. You know what? I want to buy that $100,000 car. Like, what do you say to somebody like that?
What do I say? It's a stupid idea. Like, looking like a big deal is not the same as being a big deal. That's what I'd say to that person. When somebody wants to drive $100,000, by the way, if they've got loads of dough, I mean, if we knew a little bit more information, but I can tell by the way the question's asked here that this is probably a client that shouldn't be buying a $100,000 car, right? So when they want to do that, it's all psychology. But see, in some people's world, if they buy the $100,000 car and it's going to make them feel like a big deal, and then they're going to become the big deal, then I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like this could be argued. But once again, I'm going by the basis, like the way the question's asked here. That doesn't sound like it's the case, right? And that $100,000 could be better, significantly, because you can only write off so much of the car, right? So again, remember, you buy a car, and basically you get to write it off. I mean, that's no doubt very 101 for everybody listening. But once you get to a certain threshold, and it depends what state, what country, etc., but it's going to live in and around $60,000. Once you spend over 60 grand, if it's 100 grand, you've got $40,000. You get no, there's no tax implication. There's no tax benefit after that. So you're lighting 40 grand on fire. So, and in fact, well, I would also say this, and I think this is, at the end of the day, you're building a business. Your job is to build company value. And not value in the traditional, I got to provide value. Like, value is what you sell, okay? If you build up a business, like a realtor is time for money, so they're not going to be able to sell their company, right? Like, that's not a business that you can sell. Value is something that you can sell. It's building up a brand. You know what I mean? So building up a brand, right? So building something you can sell, I think, is an important undertaking, and finding a way to make the business so that it can sell. Maybe I'll give an example. Like if you're selling dogs, okay, this is that business is never, I mean, it might be able to sell for a few bucks, but generally speaking, this is not going to sell. There's no repeat sales, right? So like, I buy my dog, I don't go buy another dog in 3 weeks or a month. And if I do, then I'm done, right? Like, not many people own more than 2 dogs, okay? So a bit like houses. So that is not a business where you're building value. If I'm selling dog food, and every person out there who is selling purebred dogs should go find a co-packer, get the food that they recommend that's good for the, say it's pugs or pit bulls or whatever it is, get the food, take it to a co-packer, reverse engineer it, make some changes, add some veggies, add some spinach, add some kale, whatever you want to throw in there, make it taste good for the dog, right? Line up 3 dogs and see which one they eat first. And there's your food. And then, so now you're creating, dog food is something that they buy on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, like they have to. The dog's not going to stop eating. Because repeat business is where the value lies. This is a business that you'd be able to sell, okay? So the reason I go off on that little riff is that if say we smoke 50 grand, like they spend 50 grand more on X, even a machine, like they buy a machine in-house, or actually, we've got a fellow buddy, Road Dog, Bieber's dad, nothing serious, guys, but anyways, legend of a guy. We love him, drink beer with him all the time. So he's got a trucking company, and he loves his Peterbilts, right? And like, if you see his Peterbilt driving down the road, you look at it and go, whew, that's a sexy machine, right? Because it is. And he likes to pimp them out. He likes to, make them look super cool, which is fine. But these are pretty expensive machines, and the stuff that he's putting on them, pretty expensive, right? Well, if he smokes 50 grand extra on Peterbilts, if his company sells for 5 times earnings, right? And it depends on the industry. Like, within an industry, the value, the multiple that you'll get for a business is pretty standard within an industry. So like a trucking company will sell for the same multiple as another trucking business. But from industry to industry, it varies dramatically, like big time, right? So like just think of an IT company gets valued at a significantly higher valuation than, the local dog food company for sure, right? But let's just go with the 5-time multiple, which would live somewhere in the middle. Well, if you spent 50 grand, 5 fives is what? 250. That's, you just took $250,000 off the valuation of the company, right? That's again where people, and remember, your job is to build up the value within a business that you could sell one day. It's not to pull, mistake people make again, like they think the goal of their business is to earn 300 grand personally, right? Like, Steve Jobs, he went back to work at Apple. He said, just pay me $1, right? He just wanted to make a piece of the upside. Lee Iacocca did the same thing when he moved. He got fired by Ford. Chrysler approached him. He said, look, I'll come work with you, but I want a piece of the upside. I want you to pay me $1 a year. But if I win, I want to really win. So I want 20% of the company. They agreed. And the rest is history. They've written books about the guy for years and they'll continue to, right? So think about it from that standpoint. Your client's job, your job, is to build a company that has value and that can be sold one day and becomes more valuable every day. Nobody's done that better than Amazon. Everybody thought Bezos was crazy. Nobody's seen anything like it. The amount of money that he lost on a weekly, monthly, annual basis just blew everybody's mind. It worked out pretty well, right? He was building shareholder value. He wasn't worried about what it looked like day to day. He worked, he was worried about building value within the company. So that's what I'd say to this guy. Depending upon what he's looking to do, he might not, let's just say he's spending 50 grand more than what he otherwise needs to do, depending upon the industry. Well, he just took the valuation of the company down 250 grand from where it would be. So instead of 1.25 one day, he's getting $1 million. So yeah, that's, I'd be talking about stuff like that, but I think I started it with looking like a big deal is not the same as being a big deal. I'd be careful with that. It can be a slippery slope. And actually, Road Dog, I want to say something else too. Here's something else. I can tell you that when you start rolling up, because you've got staff, right? You want to have, good staff and people kicking butt underneath you and with you. When you start rolling up in $100,000 cars to the office, or I've made this mistake, rolling up in flashy cars, when, you know what I mean, you're selling business coaching, this is not a good idea, right? Like if you're a realtor, you want to drive a Ford F-150, right? Like a good one, what I mean? Like a good one, but, rolling around in a $100,000 car, or most definitely a Ferrari, this is bad for sales. And I have well and truly experienced that. So anyway, so again, there can be some other intangible negative effects. And if you have a $100,000 car, what you normally do is leave it in the garage, and this is your weekend toy that, family and close friends see, once you've earned it. But, rolling up to the office in a $100,000 car is not advisable for anyone, not so. So
if you're looking for advice on how to be a big deal, there's no bigger deal than King Karl himself right there.
See, I agree, Road Dog. I agree that I set you up for that.
All right. Bit of a different tangent though, but sort of related. You're talking about company value, right? So like, what do you say to somebody that, like, let's say they've got a business and they've got like, say, 2 clients, like a low number of clients, say 2 clients, and they're making up like 70% of revenue. Like, what would you recommend there? Would you recommend, building and strengthening that relationship and selling them more products, or would you want them to sort of diversify out of that? Like, again, to add that value, what's your take on that?
First of all, I want to high five whoever sent in that question, because this is an intelligent question. So the answer is gray. It is not black and white. Okay, but guys, just make sure everybody heard this loud and clear. So what you said is that 2 clients, is that right, comprise 70% of his revenues? Is that what it was, Road Dog?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so that is what we call, in fact, ironically, I was just talking about valuation. Let me tell you a business that's going to get a poor valuation. It's this one, okay? Because it has something called concentration risk. I've actually written an email about this, by the way. It was a while ago, but concentration risk. So basically, if you've got a business, it's not just in revenues, right? In your business, you got to be very, very careful to be too reliant on too small a number of things, right? So the obvious one is the one that this guy's asked. Two clients making up 70% of the revenue. What happens when he loses one? That's like, remember, it's offense versus defense. Defense wins championships. Mic drop. Okay, end of story. And then what someone will do, because again, this is what we can't help ourselves, someone will then mention, say, the Denver Broncos or somebody else who won the Super Bowl and they were an offensive juggernaut, right? I'm sure of course, it's happened once in a while, right? But remember, this is why the football team needs to punt on 4th and 1. And the fans are sitting there, why don't you go for it, you lightweight? And the quarterback's throwing his helmet on the sidelines and the coach punts, right? Like, you want to be thinking conservatively. So this guy, if he loses one of the clients, what happens? And it's obviously a very poor result, to the point where employees might not be getting paid all of a sudden. And if they are spending, and it depends on, how high these revenues are, by the way, but I'm going to assume that they're reasonably sized. I mean, it's not unheard of that client on the side, developing their own, they're spending that much money on something, creating their own. Like, I used to own a retail shop where we sold hockey gear. Well, I went and made my own hockey gear in China, right? Well, if they were completely reliant on me spending the gear, I didn't tell the suppliers that, hey, I'm in China, just looking to build some equipment that's going to, it's going to compete with you. Like, I'm not telling anybody until the time comes, right? And then boom, it came out. But it was the low end stuff. It didn't mean that I didn't buy from the other guys, but my low end stuff, I made it all because I had to make it as inexpensive as possible for the clients that came in, which that's painfully obvious. Hockey's an expensive sport. So anyway, so do you know what I mean? So it's not unheard of them doing something on the side. So, like, as in you losing that client because they've decided to go in another direction and do this stuff in-house. So concentration risk, no, I would absolutely look to diversify, but like, don't be too stupid though. It's not like I wouldn't then go to that client and, sell them more. I would absolutely do that. That's kind of a 101, but you definitely need that. You don't want to have concentration risk in your business, both from a valuation standpoint and just day to day. Because if you lose that client unexpectedly, people aren't getting paid, right? Like, this is a bad thing. So I'd watch that. But I think there's a lesson here for all of us as business coaches, in that it's far more than just clients. Like, if you have one salesperson who rips it up and that's it, what if that person quits tomorrow? This is bad. This is also concentration risk. And when I'm valuing your company, this is something that I'm going to point at and say, this is a problem, and therefore, I'm shaving X off valuation. What about your suppliers? I just gave you an example of my retail shop, right? Like, if you've got a retail store on a really popular street, we've all seen this, right? And you're selling Nike. Well, what if Nike decides to stop? Like, you're not a Nike shop, but you're a retail shop selling running shoes and, activewear. And then Nike decides to stop supplying you, what happens? This could be a huge problem, like a big punch in the mouth. So you know what I mean? That one, we've probably all heard this, and that, somebody builds up a huge Facebook following, and then they get all of their clients are all living on Facebook, and they got this massive group. Well, what happens when Facebook makes some changes, right? So, or what about when you're driving traffic, right? Like, we drive traffic, we do it on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and other areas. Like, we don't just go to Facebook and drive all of our traffic, right? Like, again, that would be, like, again, concentration risk. What happens if it change or they spike their, advertising rates, et cetera? So that's the answer to that, is that it's gray, but concentration risk is something to be very cautious of. That puts businesses under, as that's like a common, challenge that businesses face. And as a business coach, see, I can't smell my own breath, and you can't smell yours, right? You can't see me. I can't see myself skate, and you can't see yourself skate. But you can watch me, and I can watch you, right? So this is why they need business coaches, guys. We need to go in, and we can, take an objective view, rise up 30,000 feet, and look for this type of stuff. Can't begin to tell you how important it is. But a client with concentration risk, it can be dangerous. Okay, and remember, just think defense versus offense, right? You got to have defense. So this is bad defense. Yeah.
When we're talking about that, because again, like losing customers, losing all that stuff, right? It happens. Unfortunately, it can be horrible customer service. So I just want to go down that path just for a second here, and then I think we'll wrap this up. But like when we're talking about building, like how do you help your customer, your clients, your coaching clients, build out and actually get great employees?
Okay, that's not the question I was expecting. There we go. Okay, employees from that. So here, well, I'll tell you this: you want rock stars. Okay, rock stars have, and it's like I like people who, like, if somebody's been successful at sport, like let's say if you're really good at hockey, you're probably going to be really good at business or your job or what have you. You're probably a really good parent, and the reason is that. And like a rock star, we'll come by sake of another word I can't think of. Like just you want to hire rock stars, but where you want to have rock stars that work for you. Here's the X factor: is rock stars. You hire them like they were a rock star before you met them. Okay, rock stars love to be measured. Okay, a great example is in school, right? Report card day. Depends on which side of the fence you lie. But let me tell you, report card day was not a good day for me, ever, okay? It was like, oh my gosh. But my buddy Cody Church, who went to Harvard and was, you know what I mean? He got, to this day, very insanely successful guy, like insanely. So he loved it, right? The guy was a whiz. I mean, I remember the teacher would say something and Cody would sit there and argue with the teacher in the middle of class. And I remember looking at him going, dude, like, what is happening, right? Like you're arguing with the teacher, right? It was just like well beyond the scope of what was going through my mind and, grade 8 math class. But anyway, so he's arguing with the teacher to do. He loved it. So Cody was basically a rock star in school and he loved to be measured. He loved his report card. I sucked and I therefore hated report card day, right? So the people working for you, you want them to love report card day. You want them to want to be measured. And you most definitely should be measuring them in some way, shape, or form. So what I wanted to bring across with that story there is that hiring people and trying to turn them into rock stars is not the roadmap I'd advise. Hire rock stars and then mold them to your company and your servicing and your offering, right? Like if you do internet marketing or your client does internet marketing, and then they hire somebody who's not good at internet marketing, but they've been highly successful. They've got a world record or, they've got this, that, or the other. Bring this person in, and within 30 days, 60 days, they'll be better than the other guy with 7 years of experience that's lazy as hell and just wants to play video games at 5 o'clock, right? So I'd say that. I think there's something else that's relevant. This going back almost age myself here, but 2 decades. I wrote some intellectual property around this, and it was I had a 4-part system. And again, I'm thinking back 2 decades. Hopefully, I'm going to remember this. But there was like in order to motivate rank, recognition, prizes, and then money. Okay, and they were in order, right? Notice number 4, the last one was money, and that is absolutely the way that it ranked, right? And actually, I might just press pause. I'm going to come back to this 1 second. Those rock stars that you're going to hire, remember, you're going to hire a rock star versus try and nurture and develop a rock star. You'll have to pay them above average salaries to get them. And you just have to accept that. But one rock star will outperform 10 mediocre folks, right? And they'll teach you something and help you big time, right? So So think about that. So now unpress pause. I'm going to come back to rank, recognition, prizes, and money. So they need to be making enough. And as I just said, a rock star who's good at what they do is going to need to get paid above industry average, right? Otherwise, they're not going to come work for you and believe me, somebody else will pay them that. Doesn't mean you have to pay them a fortune, but they have to feel like they're getting paid, slightly more than, what the guy down the street is getting. But rank, so important. What do you call them? Senior, you call them VPs, call them, give them president. One of the things what I did when I played hockey, I was a pretty good hockey player, and I I ran some teams over my day. I would always put the C on somebody else, and C in hockey, that's the captain, right? The reason I knew that I was going to show up, I didn't need a C on my jersey because I hope this doesn't sound, but I was running the show, right? Conversation over, mic drop, right? I put together the power play, I ran the power play, etc. So I put the C on somebody else because of rank, the first one, right? I wanted them to feel, because then I knew I had somebody else that was going to elevate, because you win and lose games in the last 2 minutes of the periods, and definitely of the game. Same with a football game. Those last 2 minutes before halftime and the last 2 minutes of the end of the game, you score as many points in those 4 minutes almost as you do the rest of the game. That's when the captain shows up. That's when the top Tom Brady's of the world blitz it. So anywho, so rank. Okay, so what was I saying? So rank, recognition, prizes, money. So you got to give them rank, and even your clients, you want to give them platinum level. With our program, right? We have platinum clients, right? Why? Because we want them to feel like they are platinum. So you've got rank, and then you've got recognition, a pat on the back, a thank you, a VIP night, right? Things like that. So recognition, prizes. The first one to do X. If you sell over $100, you get X. Employees, if you sell X, you get this bonus. One of the things we've done, think, like a trucking company or a moving company, just think of the staff that you're going to attract in that business. It's a 101. They're not getting paid well, so you get low-level performers. And the biggest problem is when they don't show up. So we would do a thing where if they came to work 6 months in a row without missing a day, they would get a trip to Vegas. So think of the dynamics of this, and think psychology as much as anything else. The guy gets there, he's like, oh, and he'd like to go to Vegas, and he hasn't been to Vegas. It's him and his wife, right? They're going to Vegas, they're going to rock and roll, right? So once he gets to about 3 months, guess what he's thinking about? Damn, I don't want to miss a day, man, because I want to get that trip to Vegas. So now you get another, after 1 month, he just, gets drunk, doesn't show up. I mean, these things happen. Once he gets to 3 months, he starts working towards the prize. And then once he gets the prize, he gets to 6 months, he comes back to work. And how do you think he feels, right? You rock stars. I love this place. And another X factor we found was that truck drivers, guess who they drink beer with, and guess who they hang out on weekends with? Other truck drivers, which is not the same way hair salon. If you're a hairdresser, a lot of your buddies are hairdressers, right? It's just the way the world works. So he was hanging out at the pub, in social gatherings with friends, and they're like, and what do you think he was talking about for that 3 month lead-in? That he's going to Vegas, he's going to Vegas, he's going to Vegas, and then he goes to Vegas and he comes home. What's he talking about? Going to Vegas, going to Vegas, going to Vegas, and how amazing it was. Well, his friend says, so how the heck did you get to Vegas, man? What's the scoop? Oh, I won it with my company. Well, now all of a sudden we started recruiting higher level staff because they were attracted to the Vegas bit. So again, rank, recognition, prizes. That was number 3. And then money goes without saying. But so again, you want to give progress equals happiness. So mistake that a lot of businesses make is that they don't give anyone a raise, and then the guy comes and asks, and then they give him, whether it's more than they should have got, but it's normally a decent amount. Well, what you should do is on a quarterly, biannual basis, annual basis, is give them a small raise, 5%, 2.5%, right? That's what the big dogs do, McDonald's, Amazons, etc. Because they want, again, it's pain of disconnect, right? They want people to feel good. Progress equals happiness. So they do pay them, they pay them X, but then there's small incremental, with time. And if a staff member for 20 years on average is going to be a much better staff member than for 2 weeks, right? This is somebody you can really rely on. So there's a lot of value in that. So that's how I'd answer that one, Road Dog. But I believe the most important thing that I said there is that people normally want to hire somebody and turn them into a rock star. And a rock star is a rock star. That's it, right? So you got to look for those people and then mold them. And they have an internal drive for success. So you will, you know what I mean? You'll be good. You'll be good. They'll rise up to the challenge. And if they can't or they won't, a rock star is the kind of person that will come and tell you, you know what? I thought this would be easier. I thought I would enjoy it more, whatever. Like, they'll let themselves go. Mediocre players, you'll find those are the people you can't get rid of, right? They're like a bad smell, man. And they just hang around, and they're tough as heck to get rid of. So one rock star is worth, 5 to 10 mediocre players, depending upon roles and whatnot that we're talking about. So that is what I'd say about bringing on high-end staff.
I love the measure thing. The first thing that popped into my mind was, of course, we all don't want to be measured at our weaknesses, but it's the only way we get better, right? Like, I remember a few years ago when I was golfing 3-4 times a week, and it's the difference between the guy that's just keeping score and the guy that's tracking how many putts, how many fairways hit, how many greens in regulation, right? Like, that sort of next level of tracking. And then it was always a competition with myself to do, okay, here's what I did on this hole last time. I got to do better this time.
Okay, think relationship. Okay, totally. Guys, listen to what Road Dog just said. And then I want you to think of 3 words: relationship, trends, and comparables. Right? So you could find a trend that, when the hole hoofs off to the left, this is what happens. The relationship between me playing on holes that veer off to the left are X. Okay, well, I need to get to the driving range and practice this. So relationship, comparables. Like, if you just keep score, and then, like I said, I could go golfing and I get 100. Look, that might be if I hit 120 last week, this is good. If I shot 90 or 87 last week, this is horrific. Without a comparable, it's useless. So, yeah, great metaphor. And relationship, trends, comparables. Just it enters the mastery level, right? Forget being excellent. All the money, all the spoils, the Tony Robbins, the Dan Kennedys, the rock stars live in mastery. And you should, my opinion, and I don't push my stuff on anybody, you know what I mean? Not everybody wants to take it to that level, and that's totally fine. But if that's who you are, and again, it's us too, we are not different, right? We've either got that internal drive or we don't. If you do, mastery is the level that you're looking for. I love, one of the things that I like for business coaches, like if you hear something here that you think is amazing, do me a favor, go teach it to somebody. That's how you really learn it. Okay, and then really importantly, that's how you'll create your own shtick, right? Like, I didn't make all this stuff up, obviously, right? Like, I'm the guy, like, Road Dog, you know this, right? Like, I mean, I am listening to the audios, I am watching the videos, I am reading the books, I am buying the programs, I am showing up to them. When I show up to a program, if I have to take a leak, I wait until the break to go take a leak because I don't want to miss what's going on, right? And that's not, I'm just trying to give you this is the level, this is what I like. Take this stuff, guys, and go teach it. Then what you'll find is you'll get your own shtick, right? Like, where, oh, okay, cool, right? Like the fact that I'm studying accounting in my spare time would make my math teacher in grade 8 literally fall over, right? So, but I don't know. It's become my shtick, right? Like, I love financials and I love that relationship, trends, and comparables because I believe that its ability to impact the business owner is just mind-boggling. So that's where it's at. So go teach this. If you hear something you think's cool or helpful, go teach somebody. That's what I'm saying.
And in the spirit of mastery and keeping our calls in under an hour, you've got 7 minutes or less to wrap this up. Good luck.
Let's go. Are you going to ask me one more, or am I wrapping up?
No, I think we're good. But we want to keep this. Those were all the questions more or less related to that. I think that was really important just when it comes to it all really tied back to the financials, right? Like, that was beautiful. And I'm really, Karl, I got to tell you, man, like, I I cannot wait to see where this goes for you in terms of because I know the knowledge, and I say this not just because we're good buddies, but and I'm going to pick up a ton. I'm going to learn so much by you studying this stuff, and I can't wait to have more of that stuff show up on these calls.
Thank you, Road Dog, and high five. And I'm not sure how to take that. That might mean that I'm a little bit possessed with all this stuff, guys. But anyway, yeah, cool. So thanks, man. And that is true, guys. You again, if you're on this podcast, you're probably following my emails, following some of my stuff. You're working with us, and we have got some stuff coming your way. Profit acceleration software again just launched 2.0, and the improvements and the adjustments and whatnot coming. Like we've already got 2.0 is still kind of in beta, but like it's on the way. It's out. We're already got 3.0. We've got changes that are coming. So yeah, without going into it. So we got lots coming, guys. You keep following us, and promise you won't let you down. If you're a business coach and you want to take it to another level, most importantly, want to take your clients' businesses to another level, the stuff that we are going to provide you is going to assist you in a very real and tangible and valuable way. So I encourage you to stay tuned. On that note, that is it for this edition of Business Coaching Secrets. Of course, we appreciate everybody listening in. If you could do me a favor, if you could leave us a review, give us a rating on iTunes. Of course, that's super appreciated. And other than that, just tell your friends about it. If you know somebody who should become a business coach, fire this over to them. If you know somebody who is a business coach, fire this over to them. But for now, we will see you next time. I appreciate everybody listening in. Road Dog, I appreciate you being here, bud, to help out. And we will speak to everybody on the next podcast.
Make it a great week, everybody.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0 to train business coaches how to find any small business owner more than $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. This becomes a business coach's superpower. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at Focused.com.